สวัสดีครับ I'm Point from ค้นพบ Let's talk about the ego today. In particular, why your ego or why our egos just loves to demonize something else. Just loves to be so quick in labeling, judging, and demonizing something which we don't agree with, which we don't approve of, which we don't subscribe to, right? Labeling and judging as evil, as the devil, as bad, as wrong. Isn't that interesting? I'm sure we can all relate to this to a greater or lesser extent because I'm sure that we've all had experiences of this before in our lives. I certainly have. And this is best demonstrated by talking things that are especially sensitive because we have a greater amount of attachment to them. And that is, for example, when we see political ideas that differ from ours, when we see a politician that we don't like speak. And isn't it just the case that we tend to feel an immediate urge based on dislike, feeling upset, and we just want to judge them, label them as, speaking crap, speaking a bunch of shit, they're evil, they're the demon. In all levels, their behavior, they're corrupt, they represent a bad idea, a bad ideology, a dangerous idea in how they want to move the country forward, and you name it. Or perhaps it's an issue of religion, right? Perhaps there's a religious idea, religious belief system that you don't subscribe to, and you somehow view as threatening to you, your culture, your country in some way, shape, or form, and you demonize it, right? Or perhaps it's simply a value system. Perhaps it's even somebody in particular. Perhaps that person has wronged you before in the past, who you've had an issue with before, or perhaps you are currently in conflict with. Why is it that the mind is so quick to make a demon out of these things, which we judge as differing from our standpoint? You see that? Now, the idea that I want to present here, there's no easy way to say it other than just saying it straightforward. And that is, your ego mind, or in other words, you or us. The ego always gets a secret hidden benefit, a secret payoff, a secret sense of satisfaction, or perhaps you can even say a secret sense of pleasure, right? That strengthens the sense of the ego by judging and labeling something else that you don't approve of as evil, as bad, as wrong, as sinful, and the list goes on. Now, before you get upset, let me clarify, because rightfully so, this can be misunderstood or misinterpreted quite easily. Imagine this thought process with me. Let's say you come across something you don't approve of, something that is potentially dangerous, perhaps a dogmatic ideology, a religion that is causing, in your view, more harm than good. Somebody who, in your view, is bad because they are a cheater, they are corrupt, or they are a liar, they are selfish. You see, when we judge, when we are quick to judge, we label that individual, that person, that situation, that idea, or that belief system, we label it as wrong, bad, evil. It is the devil. We put it in a box, and in doing so, it is convenient for the ego to say that this box, this idea, that person represents all that is bad in the world, represents all that is wrong with our world, with our society, with our reality, because that person is immoral, is sinful, is unethical, has no values, is corrupt, etc. It is very convenient for the ego to make that quick snap judgment, because in doing so, you get to put it in a box, call it evil, move it aside, and continue on your life. Here's where the hidden benefit lies. Because on the other side of that judgment is therefore where you stand. Because if that person, that idea, that belief which you don't subscribe to and which you don't agree with is representative of all that is wrong in life, then that means you where you stand, what you believe in, your value system, your culture, your belief systems, your religious beliefs, your political ideas, your behaviors, your actions. You represent all that is good, all that is rightful, righteousness, morality, ethics, values. That is the secret payoff that is often, that often slips right underneath the radar that we're not aware of. And why would we want to be aware of it? It doesn't serve us to be aware of it. It does not serve the ego to be aware of it. Because if you are aware of this mechanism behind judgments, by definition, you would have to stop. And that causes emotional turmoil because it directly calls into question your sense of self, your self-concept, your ego. And again, I talk about the ego a lot in many of my previous videos, but to sum it up here real quick again, your ego is pretty much what you identify with. It is your sense of self. All the things that you identify with and consider to be you, right? Your nationality, your race, your gender, your age, your religious ideas, your political ideas, the football team you like, the sports team you like, the type of music you like, your friends, your families, your value system, the job that you have, the occupation that you have, what you want in life. All these things that we attach to a greater or lesser extent, they form part of our self-concept. And as I talked about in one of my previous videos about how the ego works, how judgment works. And when we have a identification with something, when we view something as part of ourself, in other words, when our ego identifies with it, there is a natural tendency to need to claim ownership of it and therefore protect it. And the way you protect this is all psychological. You protect this self-concept by judging and demonizing and labeling something else as other, right? Here's me holding the right values, the right beliefs, right? The moral ones here. And anybody else who believes differently, they're somehow wrong, somehow evil, somehow misguided. Now, of course, I'm making it quite extreme here to paint a picture, to prove a point. But there can be cases where that person legitimately views something else as the embodiment of pure evil. And I talked about this before again, that there's no such thing as evil in one of my previous videos. Right? But isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? How this mechanism of judgment, if we're really willing to self-reflect here and be honest with ourselves, we will quickly find the benefit or the payoff or the sense of pleasure or the strengthening of the sense of self, which has which serves some benefit to your ego. We will very quickly see this mechanism in us. But the difficulty is that we don't want to take the time and effort to process this and try to understand and contemplate this or see this mechanism in ourselves, because again, it doesn't serve your ego to do so. Because the more you see this mechanism, the more you understand, the bigger the perspective you develop, right? The more clarity you have on the issue. And therefore, this automatically reduces the natural tendency or urge to judge and to demonize. And that can be difficult because that process requires a lot of emotional work and emotional labor, because it will lead to a lot of potentially emotional discomfort when you're having to reconsider why you think the way you do, judge and demonize those that you do. And when you understand that on the deepest level, there's no real judgment to be made except for one that serves your ego, it's very disturbing for your mind to come across this fork in the road, if you get what I'm trying to say here. But once you get to this fork in the road and you're able to process this and integrate it with understanding, with clarity, with non-judgment, that's ironically what leads you to grow and develop as a person, as a human being. And in that way, if you look at this philosophically, is the beauty in life, I would propose, right? Because in difficulty, in emotional difficulty, having to reflect on yourself, be honest with yourself, see yourself for what your ego is doing, it can be very disturbing because nobody wants to admit that perhaps that other person who believes the way they do, does the way they behaves the way they do, right? Maybe there is a reason that explains why they have those attachments, have those belief systems, behave in that way, see the world through that lens of theirs. This is not to welcome it, or this is not to say that it's, to promote it, but just seeing it for what it is with understanding and with clarity. And that is, ironically, something easy to say but difficult to do. And therefore, I invite you to begin as a thought experiment. Whenever you come across something that you disapprove of, turn the situation on its head, and instead of going out there to judge in your mind, judge outwards, pay attention to why you're making that judgment. Pay attention to why that demonization or labeling that other person, other belief as evil, how does it serve you? How does it serve your ego? How does it strengthen the sense of self-righteousness? Strengthen the sense of that, see, I'm over here, I have the superior moral belief systems or something like that. You see that? And just sit on that. Observe that in yourself without giving yourself a hard time, without judging yourself for thinking the way you do. Just be an observer. Imagine that you are a scientist observing what's going on in your own mind. And the ability to observe this mechanism and not react to it, is where I would argue, and what many teachers would say, certainly, it is where true power lies. The ability to not react to your own emotions, the ability to understand your own attachment dynamics, attachment to your self-concept, belief systems, why you think and behave and believe the way you do, and why you don't like other belief systems, other behaviors that come into conflict with yours, that challenges yours, why you dislike that so much. Just sit and observe what's going on in your mind. And you will learn a lot about yourself. And that's where a lot of growth opportunity lies. Because the reason why it requires emotional labor is because when you start to observe and self-reflect and contemplate on this, you will see the mental level that is in discomfort. It doesn't like the thought that it has. It doesn't like the idea that is being presented by the other political party or the politician that you don't like. It finds it disturbing. That mental disturbance leads to a psychological disturbance, leads to a negative emotion that you call upset. Perhaps you're angry. And that could even lead to physical discomfort. Because on the mental level, psychological level, emotional level, and physical level, they're all connected. And that's why this work is easier said than done. But at the heart of it, if you can master yourself in this aspect, then you will find that no matter what you come across in life, you will feel empowered to manage it, to deal with it, to get through it with clarity and with wisdom. And that's where true understanding, I would say, starts to develop, right? So you really begin to take back agency, meaning you really begin to take back power, because the ability to not react to outer things which you deem as the cause of why you feel angry, the ability to not react to that by seeing and mastering what's going on in your own mind, right? If you're able to master that completely, then it can be said that therefore nothing outside will ever have power over you. Now, of course, this is a very long road to walk, and I myself am still learning every single day, right? It's not easy, but it's a wonderful thought experiment to play on yourself. Why you get upset when somebody does something you don't like, when somebody says something that you don't like, when you come across an idea or belief that you don't approve of, when you come across some for example, some trashy TV show that you might not like, for example, right? Something that you deem as trashy or not of high quality, or that you find disturbing or distasteful. Why do you not like it? Are you able to just watch it and look at it for what it is without the need to react to it? Right? Now, this does not mean to not take action, but you want to take action. You want to take your action from a place of clarity. And oftentimes what we will find is that in most of these cases, we don't need to take action because we know that it's actually more of an internal warfare that we're doing here. The action that we need to take is to regain clarity, perspective, and calm ourselves in these situations. Yes, there are situations where you need to take action, make a stand, right? Correct what you see as harmful, or remove yourself from for example, a toxic relationship, or remove yourself from a position where they are taking advantage of you. But the point is, once you can master yourself, you can take these actions and not have to suffer along with it. You don't need to be angry, or you don't need to be suffering in order to solve a problem. That's what I want to share in today's video. Right. Now, before I end the video, I just want to go off on a tangent a little bit and talk about cases where somebody has really, really wronged you before in the past, abused you perhaps, cheated from you, stolen from you, robbed you, hurt you, harmed you, betrayed you, right? This is not to say that those, traumatic events or those negative experiences never happened. Of course they did happen. But the point is that when we really work through this in ourselves, we learn to master ourselves more, we'll be more willing to forgive as well. That's a byproduct. Now, there may be, in that tangent, there may be a number of reasons why we feel stuck holding on to a grudge against somebody who did something very, very hurtful to us, right? And yes, you can argue that in those cases, right, it's not an issue of I want to feel morally superior. I want to feel good. I want to label them as bad. It's a different issue, right? Perhaps, for example, right, somebody who had betrayed you in the past and you don't want to forgive them. I'm sure we all know somebody in our social circle. Perhaps it's somebody that you're friends with or that you know personally. Ever notice that there's always someone who seems to always hold on to a certain grudge in their life, never able to let go? You see, you can argue that it's not that they want to feel superior, but perhaps, they don't know, they haven't processed the event that happened in a truly helpful way yet. And holding on to that grudge can serve them in some other way. For example, if I forgive an abuser that hurt me in the past, then does that mean that what that abuser did is completely okay? Does that mean that that abuser never ever has to pay for the consequences of his or her action? It can be very difficult to evolve through this, and that's completely understandable. And so when we talk about forgiveness, it is not a process of forcing our way there. It is not a process of trying to force yourself to forgive. And I want to briefly mention this as well because it can get jumbled in this topic that I want to present. Because you might ask, what do you mean, Point? What do you mean that there's always a hidden benefit that the ego gets in judging and labeling? That you want to feel superior, you want to feel right? What about in that case where I was abused? This person has abused me for the past 10 years of my life. What do you mean I want to feel superior? That's a different issue, right? But they could be related as well. They could be. The point that I'm trying to communicate here, the main topic is just for simple things that we tend to judge, tend to demonize, tend to call evil and bad. Really think about that. Really think about how that perspective or clinging on to that viewpoint, calling your ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, ex-husband, ex-wife as an evil human being, calling that politician as evil, that idea, whoever subscribes to that political idea, they're all stupid, they're all idiots. Really contemplate, why do you think the way you do, and what is it serving? And that can lead to a greater understanding of ourselves, which is what I want to share in today's video. Again, really look at yourself. If you are able to master your own emotions, master yourself, and not react when you come across or hear things that you don't like or don't approve of, and you're able to not react to those things, you have true power. So think about that. All right. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this food for thought was valuable for you. And I invite you to continue along this journey of self-growth with me. If you found the video was helpful, please leave a like, please share, and subscribe to my channel. Don't forget, Konpop is on YouTube and Facebook, and be sure to check me out on my other page, my coaching page, Thrive with Point. Information should be up on the screen. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. สวัสดีครับ